The mayor's daughter and the local mechanic have been rivals since high school, until now. The summer heat came early to Willow Creek, pressing against the town like a stubborn memory. Cicadas droned in the sycamores, and the air smelled faintly of oil and honeysuckle, an odd combination that somehow fit perfectly for this place. Kaitlyn Monroe stood outside the old garage at the corner of Main and Maple, her crisp white blouse already clinging to her back, glaring at the hand-painted sign swinging in the lazy breeze. Susanna's Auto Repair, honest work. Fair prices. No nonsense. No nonsense. Kaitlyn snorted softly. That was rich, coming from Susanna Vega, the same girl who once filled her cheer squad's megaphone with shaving cream the morning of homecoming. But time had sharpened Susanna's edges and polished Kaitlyn's. The pranks were long gone, replaced by council meetings and Chamber of Commerce luncheons for Kaitlyn, and by grease-stained hands and a thriving business for Susanna. Yet, standing there under the high sun, Kaitlyn felt that same flare of irritation she used to feel whenever Susanna smirked at her across the bleachers. She checked her reflection in the side mirror of her car, straightened her pearl earrings, and squared her shoulders before pushing open the shop door. The chime above it jingled, weak and off-key, like even it had given up trying to sound polite. The smell hit her first, oil, rubber, metal. And beneath it, something warmer. Like sandalwood and sunshine. "Be right with you," came a voice from under a car. Kaitlyn crossed her arms and surveyed the place. Organized chaos. Tools everywhere, but in their own kind of order. Coffee cups balanced on fenders. A calendar of pin-up cars instead of women. Typical. Then a pair of long, tan legs rolled out from under the car, followed by Susanna Vega herself, hair tied up in a messy bandana, a smudge of grease across her jaw, and eyes the color of honey in sunlight. When she saw Kaitlyn, she grinned. Well, look who finally got her hands dirty. Kaitlyn's lips pressed into a thin line. I'm not here for a social call. I'm here about the town parade. Oh, joy, Susanna said, sitting up and wiping her hands on a rag. Nothing says small-town politics like glitter, floats, and forced smiles. It's tradition, Kaitlyn replied crisply. And your business was assigned one of the floats. You're representing the local trades. Assigned? Susanna's grin widened. What, no choice in the matter? You volunteering me again, Monroe? Kaitlyn exhaled sharply. It's Mayor Monroe, thank you. I didn't vote for her, Susanna said with mock solemnity, tossing her rag onto a workbench. But I hear her daughter's a real piece of work. Kaitlyn felt the heat rising in her chest. I'm trying to include everyone this year. You could try not to make it personal for once. It's always personal with you, isn't it? Susanna said softly, stepping closer, her voice dipping into something that felt too intimate for an argument. You never learned how to let it go. Let what go? That night senior year, Susanna said, the words landing heavy. When I beat you for valedictorian. Kaitlyn blinked. That was 15 years ago. Susanna shrugged. Funny how you still bring it up. I didn't. Sure you did. Her eyes gleamed, teasing. Your tone did. For a heartbeat, Kaitlyn forgot how to breathe. Because there was something in Susanna's smile, something softer than mockery. Something dangerous. She turned toward the door, her heels clicking hard on the concrete. Just be ready by Friday. I'll check in on your progress. Don't worry, Susanna called after her. Wouldn't want to embarrass the mayor's precious daughter. Kaitlyn didn't turn back. But she heard that familiar laugh behind her, low and rough around the edges, and it made something traitorous inside her twist. 3 days later, Kaitlyn found herself back at the garage. Against her better judgment. Officially, she was there to ensure every business float met parade standards. Unofficially, she hadn't stopped thinking about that laugh, or those eyes, since Monday. When she stepped inside, the place looked transformed. The old pickup Susanna had been working on was now decked out with banners reading, "Proud to keep Willow Creek running." Strings of silver gear-shaped decorations hung from the roof. Kaitlyn blinked. You did all this yourself? Susanna turned from the truck bed, a staple gun in hand. Nope. Got the teenagers from the trade school to help. Told them it'd count for community service. That's actually clever. Don't sound so surprised, Susanna teased, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I can do more than turn a wrench, you know. Kaitlyn hesitated, then stepped closer, eyeing the craftsmanship. It's impressive. Susanna smirked. That sounded almost like a compliment. I said almost. They stood there in the hum of the shop, just close enough that Kaitlyn could feel the warmth radiating off her. There was something unsettling about the way Susanna looked at her, like she was trying to remember a secret she'd once known by heart. Do you ever stop being perfect? Susanna asked suddenly, voice quiet but sharp. What? You walk around like your life's been laminated. Like nothing messy's ever touched you. Kaitlyn bristled. That's not fair. It's not meant to be. Susanna's tone softened, but her gaze didn't waver. You used to have fire in you. I saw it in high school, behind all the ribbons and speeches. You cared. You felt things. I still do, Kaitlyn said, too fast, too defensive. Then prove it, Susanna said. Stay. Help me finish this thing instead of running off to your air-conditioned office. Kaitlyn should have said no. She meant to. But instead, she kicked off her heels, rolled up her sleeves, and grabbed a paintbrush. The hours melted. Paint smudges on her fingers. The sound of country music leaking from an old radio. Their conversation flowed from teasing to memories, then back to teasing again. They talked about the town, their families, the people who'd left and the ones who never would. When the sun dipped low and the world went golden, Susanna handed her a bottle of lemonade and leaned against the truck. Not bad, Monroe. Didn't think you had it in you. Kaitlyn took a sip, smiling faintly. Maybe you just never looked close enough. That got her another long, unreadable stare. Maybe I didn't want to. Why? Because, Susanna said, her voice husky, if I looked too close, I might have liked what I saw. The lemonade bottle slipped slightly in Kaitlyn's grip. Her throat went dry. You're... what? Susanna stepped closer, eyes locked on hers. Too honest? Too much, Kaitlyn whispered. I've been called worse. The space between them narrowed until the air felt electric. Kaitlyn could smell the faint salt of Susanna's skin, see the flecks of amber in her brown eyes. For a moment, the world held its breath. Then a car horn blared outside, snapping them apart. Your dad, Susanna muttered, glancing toward the window. Guess the mayor's making his rounds. Kaitlyn blinked hard, gathering her composure. I should go, Susanna finished for her. Yeah. You're good at that. The parade day dawned bright and unbearable. Main Street glittered with confetti and bunting, the whole town turning out in sun hats and smiles. Susanna's float rolled up third in line, sleek, clever, the crowd cheering as kids waved from the back. Kaitlyn stood by the reviewing stand, clipboard in hand, pretending her heart wasn't doing strange gymnastics. When Susanna's truck passed, their eyes met through the crowd. Just for a second. Long enough for the noise to fade. Later that afternoon, after the parade, Kaitlyn found her behind the garage again, cleaning up. Congratulations, she said softly. You won the float contest. Susanna blinked, surprised. Seriously? You deserved it. Well, damn, Susanna said, wiping her hands. Guess miracles happen. Kaitlyn smiled faintly. You did a good job. You keep saying that. Makes me think you mean more than the float. Kaitlyn took a breath. Maybe I do. Susanna froze. Say that again. Maybe I do, Kaitlyn repeated, stepping closer. Maybe I've been wrong about you all these years. Or maybe we've both been too proud to admit we weren't enemies. Maybe, Kaitlyn said, we were just scared. Susanna's breath hitched. Scared of what? This, Kaitlyn whispered, and closed the distance between them. The kiss was slow, disbelieving. 15 years of rivalry, misunderstanding, and heat burned away in an instant. The grease on Susanna's hand streaked faintly across Kaitlyn's blouse, and Kaitlyn didn't care. Not even a little. When they finally broke apart, both were smiling. So, Susanna murmured, does this mean the mayor's daughter is slumming it with the help? Kaitlyn laughed softly. It means the mayor's daughter finally figured out who's been under her skin since high school. Susanna grinned. Took her long enough. The cicadas hummed. The sunlight turned amber. And for the first time in a very long time, Kaitlyn Monroe didn't feel like she had to win anything at all. The cicadas hummed. The sunlight turned amber. And for the first time in a very long time, Kaitlyn Monroe didn't feel like she had to win anything at all. The peace didn't last long. It never did in Willow Creek, especially not when the mayor's daughter was kissing the town's favorite troublemaker behind a garage. They broke apart slowly, both a little dazed. Susanna's thumb brushed the corner of Kaitlyn's mouth like she wasn't sure the moment was real, like she could smudge it away and wake up. You, Susanna cleared her throat, that cocky grin trying to claw its way back. You know this is gonna blow up in our faces, right? That depends, Kaitlyn said, still a little breathless. You planning on announcing it through a town-wide robocall? Susanna snorted. Please. I don't have that kind of budget. Then maybe, Kaitlyn said, fingers curling in the front of Susanna's t-shirt, we can enjoy 5 minutes before catastrophe. 5 minutes, Susanna echoed. Ambitious for a politician. Kaitlyn laughed, the sound surprising her with how light it was. I hate you. Liar, Susanna murmured. Then the back door of the garage banged open. Kai, a voice called. You back here? Kaitlyn flinched and jerked away, heart plummeting. Lydia, her best friend since kindergarten, stepped into view, squinting in the sun. Her gaze flicked from Kaitlyn's flushed face to Susanna, to the suspiciously close space between them. Oh, Lydia said slowly. Did I interrupt something? Kaitlyn's brain scrambled. We were just discussing the parade results. Very passionately, Susanna added dryly. Lydia's eyebrows climbed. She glanced down at Kaitlyn's slightly smeared lipstick, caught the grease streak on her blouse, and then gave Susanna a look sharp enough to cut steel. Right, Lydia said. Well, you're late for the debrief at town hall. Your dad's looking for you. Of course he was. I'll be there in 10, Kaitlyn said, her voice suddenly clipped back into the familiar public tone. Tell him I was confirming some details with Miss Vega. Lydia's frown deepened at the formality, but she nodded. Fine. Don't keep him waiting. You know how he gets after events. She turned and disappeared back inside. Silence settled again, heavier this time. Ms. Vega, Susanna repeated quietly. Cute. You heard her, Kaitlyn said, backing away, trying to breathe past the sudden tightness in her chest. I have to go. Yeah. Susanna's mouth twisted. Wouldn't want the mayor to find out his daughter's slumming it behind the garage. That's not what this is, Kaitlyn snapped, more sharply than she intended. Isn't it? Susanna's eyes went flat in a way that made Kaitlyn's stomach flip. Because the second someone else shows up, you act like you don't even know me. I'm trying not to start a scandal in front of my father's oldest campaign donor, Kaitlyn hissed. Lydia's uncle writes half the opinion pieces for the Gazette. Susanna shrugged, defensive. So that means I get to be your dirty little secret. Kaitlyn flinched. That's not fair. Maybe not, Susanna said. But it's true. They stared at each other over the invisible line running between their worlds, oil-stained concrete on one side, polished marble floors on the other. Kaitlyn swallowed hard. I don't know how to do this. Yeah, Susanna said quietly, I kind of figured. Kaitlyn opened her mouth, didn't even know what she meant to say. The right words, the brave ones, jammed up behind 15 years of being watched, weighed, evaluated. 15 years of always choosing the safe answer. She closed it again. I have to go, she said, hating how small the word sounded. Then go, Susanna replied, voice tired. You're good at that, remember? This time, when Kaitlyn walked away, she didn't look back. Town hall always smelled like coffee and obligation. The debrief was already in full swing when Kaitlyn slipped into the council chamber, still slightly out of breath. Volunteers and committee heads sat around the long table, shuffling papers. Her father stood at the head, tie loosened but posture still ramrod straight. There she is, Mayor Monroe said, relief and reprimand woven into one. Our logistics queen. Everything goes smoothly on your end, Katie? She winced at the nickname but pasted on her public smile. Floats were on schedule, no safety violations, crowd control was adequate. We did have some confetti blockage in the storm drains. I'll follow up with Public Works. Her father nodded approvingly. Excellent. Then his eyes narrowed. What's that on your blouse? Kaitlyn glanced down. The faint gray streak near her shoulder might as well have been neon. Paint, she lied smoothly. From helping with the floats. Her father's mouth did that thing it did when something didn't fit his mental picture. Hands on as ever, he said with a forced chuckle, eliciting a ripple of polite laughter from the room. Just make sure you change before the Rotary dinner tonight. The mayor's family represents the town's best face. There it was. The role. The costume. I'll be ready, she said. When the meeting finally adjourned, Lydia caught her elbow in the hallway. Okay, she said. You're going to tell me what that was about. What was about? Kaitlyn asked, heading for her office. Don't play dumb, Lydia said, following her in and closing the door behind them. You and Susanna. Behind the garage. You looked like. I don't know. Like you just stuck your hand in a live wire and liked it. Kaitlyn sank into her chair. She stared at the framed degree on the wall, the commendations, the photo of her and her father cutting the ribbon at the new playground. It was nothing, she said. Bullshit, Lydia shot back. I have known you since you ate glue in Mrs. Olson's class. Your face does not do nothing like that. Kaitlyn barked out a humorless laugh. I ate glue once. Once is enough to be in your permanent record, Lydia said, arms folded. Talk. Kaitlyn hesitated, then exhaled. We kissed. Lydia blinked. You and Susanna? Yes. Like, a peck? Or like, kissed? Why is that the distinction your brain goes to? Because I need to know how many exclamation points to put in the group chat, Lydia said, then sobered at Kaitlyn's look. Okay. No jokes. How do you feel? Terrified. Alive. Split in half. I don't know, Kaitlyn said honestly. It just happened. Kisses don't just happen, Lydia said gently, pulling a chair closer. I mean, unless you tripped and literally fell on her face, which, knowing you, is only a medium stretch. Kaitlyn's lips twitched. We were talking. About the float. About high school. About everything. And then she said something, and I wanted to. Lydia's expression softened. You've wanted to for a long time, haven't you? Kaitlyn looked away. It's stupid. Stupid like 3 years of you obsessively checking her social media and then pretending you don't? I do not. Kai, Lydia said firmly. I love you. But you lie to yourself more than you lie to anyone else. You have been hung up on her since the day she beat you for valedictorian and winked at you during her speech. Kaitlyn remembered that moment too vividly, sitting in her white gown, fingers digging into the edge of her seat, the sting of losing by half a point. The way Susanna had walked up, tassel swinging, grin lazy and radiant. The way she'd looked down at Kaitlyn and murmured, "Guess I finally got you to look at me." It was easier to hate her, Kaitlyn whispered. "I know," Lydia said. "Hating someone gives you a script. You know your lines." Kaitlyn swallowed. "What if I don't know how to be anything else with her?" "Then you learn," Lydia said simply. "The question is, do you want to?" Kaitlyn thought of the kiss. The way the world had narrowed to the warmth of Susanna's mouth, the solid weight of her hands. The way it had felt like stepping out of a photograph into real, messy life. "Yes," she admitted. "I do." "Then you're going to have to decide how much of your life is going to be about optics and how much is going to be about you," Lydia said. "Because those two trains? They're about to collide." Kaitlyn stared at her. "You think my dad will lose his mind?" Lydia supplied. "Yeah. Probably. But he'll calm down. Eventually. He's up for re-election in 6 months, Kaitlyn said, dread twisting deep. "If this comes out now." "If?" Lydia repeated. "Girl." Kaitlyn's stomach dropped. "You think people already know?" "This is Willow Creek," Lydia said. "We have a Facebook group dedicated to mysterious noises after 9 p.m. If a squirrel farts on Oak Street, 10 people post about it. Someone saw you too. Maybe they didn't see the kiss, but they saw something." Her phone vibrated on her desk. She glanced down. Heard you were late to debrief. Everything okay?" Dad's tense. Another ping. Unknown number, mayor's girl getting cozy with the grease monkey now? Some example for the town, lol. The bottom fell out of her chest. "Who is it?" Lydia asked. Kaitlyn turned the screen so she could see. The number was unsaved, but the area code was local. The message was already making her palms sweat. "Right," Lydia said grimly. "So. Welcome to Scandal Light." Kaitlyn's ears rang. "What am I supposed to do?" "You can start," Lydia said, "by not pretending this is nothing. Not to me, and definitely not to Susanna. Because trust me, if you go radio silent after kissing her like that, she will burn this town down before she lets you treat her like a mistake." Susanna didn't hear about the text. She heard about the Facebook post. By the time the sun slid behind the trees, the Willow Creek Community Bulletin group was buzzing. Someone, username TruthTeller89, avatar of a Bible wrapped in an American flag, because of course, had posted a blurry photo taken from across the alley, the corner of Susanna's garage visible, 2 figures in close silhouette. The caption read, "Is this the good example the mayor's always bragging about? Seems his daughter spends a lot of time behind the garage with the mechanic. Professional? Or something else? Just asking questions." The comments were worse. Some defended. Some joked. Some dripped with moral outrage thinly disguised as concern for the town's image. Someone inevitably dragged in traditional values. Someone else pointed out that the mayor's daughter had never been public with a boyfriend. The word unnatural appeared more than once. Susanna read every comment exactly once, jaw clenched, and then threw her phone onto the workbench so hard a socket wrench rattled to the floor. "Hey!" Marco, her apprentice, jumped. "Easy. That thing owe you money or something?" "Just idiots," she muttered, grabbing the wrench and shoving it back into its drawer. "You want me to moderate the page?" Marco offered. "I could flood the comments with pictures of raccoons. Confuse them into silence." She huffed out a sound that might have been a laugh in another universe. Tempting. "You okay, boss?" "Peachy," she lied. "Go home. It's late." "You sure?" "Yeah." She forced a smile. "Get some sleep. I need you functional tomorrow if Mrs. Dalrymple's Buick is going to survive another season." Marco saluted and headed out, leaving Susanna alone with the echo of her own heartbeat and the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights. She stared at the phone like it might bite. The urge to call Kaitlyn warred with the urge to throw the damn thing through the nearest window. Had Kaitlyn seen it? Of course she had. Her entire life revolved around knowing what people were saying. The silence from her number was already screaming. Finally, Susanna snatched up the phone and typed. You see the post? She deleted it. Typed again. Guess the whole town's just asking questions now. You okay? Deleted that too. She settled on. We should talk. She sent it before she could second-guess herself, then cursed under her breath and started pacing. 10 minutes. 20. 30. No response. Of course, she muttered to herself. Of course she disappears when it's not convenient. She tried to shove the thought away, but it crawled through all the old wounds. The scholarship she didn't take because her mom got sick. The college acceptance letters Kaitlyn had flaunted senior week. The way Susanna had overheard Kaitlyn saying, in the restroom at prom, it's not that I hate her, she's so reckless. I can't be associated with that. As if there was a club, and Susanna simply didn't belong. She grabbed a rag and started scrubbing at an oil stain on the floor that had probably been there longer than she'd owned the place. Her hands shook. You knew better, she told herself. You knew who she was. You knew what family she came from. But then she remembered the feel of Kaitlyn's hand on her chest, the way her voice had gone low and real. Maybe I've been wrong about you all these years. That's the problem, she muttered. She doesn't even know which version of you she wants. The bell over the front door jingled. We're closed, Susanna called without looking up. Didn't realize your customer service hours were so limited, came Kaitlyn's voice. Susanna's head snapped up. Kaitlyn stood in the doorway, hair pulled back in a sleek twist, makeup scrubbed off. She'd changed out of her parade day blouse and was wearing a faded college t-shirt Susanna recognized from a decade-old yearbook photo. It made her look more human. Less laminated. You forget how doors work? Susanna asked. I said we're closed. We need to talk, Kaitlyn said, stepping inside. Figures, Susanna muttered. Now you can talk. I saw the post, Kaitlyn said, ignoring the jab. I reported it. A bunch of people did. It's gone now. Yeah, that's how the internet works, Susanna said. You delete one thing, 3 more grow back like Hydra heads. People are defending us in the comments, Kaitlyn said. Did you see that? High school kids. Parents. The librarian. You remember Ms. Harris? She threatened to educate anyone who used the Bible out of context. It's not the ones defending us I'm worried about, Susanna said, crossing her arms. It's the ones who called you a disgrace to the mayor's office. Kaitlyn flinched. I can handle them. Can you? Susanna asked. Because from where I'm standing, you've spent your entire life trying to make sure they approved of you. You really ready to throw that away for a few stolen kisses behind a garage? Kaitlyn's throat worked. Is that all you think this is? I think, Susanna said carefully, that I don't know what this is. I know what it feels like. But I also know I will not be dragged out of the closet by a blurry Facebook post while you stand there and say it was all a misunderstanding. Is that what you think I'd do? Kaitlyn whispered. Deny you? I think when shit hits the fan, Susanna said, you go where you've always gone, to the side that lets you keep your halo. That's not fair. Maybe not, Susanna said. But you haven't exactly proved me wrong, princess. Stop calling me that, Kaitlyn snapped. You say it like it's a crime that my dad's the mayor. It's not a crime, Susanna shot back. It's a shield. One you hide behind every time things get uncomfortable. Something in Kaitlyn snapped. You have no idea what it's like to be me, she said, voice shaking. To have every move watched, every outfit judged, every friendship examined for what it signals about my father's politics. I can't go to the grocery store in sweatpants without someone posting about it. I can't have a bad day. I can't make a mistake. And I can? Susanna demanded. I screw up part of someone's engine and their entire family reminds me for the next 10 years, like it proves I never should have taken over this place. Small town memory doesn't just pick on the mayor's daughter, Kaitlyn. It picks on all of us. I'm not saying you have it easy, Kaitlyn said, frustrated. I'm saying I don't know how to be the person you want and the person he needs me to be at the same time. Susanna's jaw clenched. Do you always define yourself by what other people need from you? Yes, Kaitlyn said, the word ripped from her throat. Silence shocked both of them. Yes, she repeated quietly. Because that's how I was raised. You smile. You soothe. You fix. You make sure dad's not blindsided, mom's not embarrassed, donors aren't offended. You keep the machine running. Susanna looked at her for a long time. Some of the anger drained away, replaced by something more complicated. And what about what you need? She asked softly. Kaitlyn felt the answer burning in her, but saying it aloud felt like stepping off a cliff. I don't know, she said, hating the tremor in her voice. I've never let myself think about it. Susanna sighed, rubbing a hand over her face. You want to know what I need? Yes. I need to not feel like I'm dragging you into the deep end while you're still clinging to the shallow end ladder, Susanna said. I need to know that if we do this, you're not going to pretend it never happened the second someone important looks at you sideways. Kaitlyn swallowed. That's a lot to promise in one night. Then don't promise, Susanna said. Decide. Figure out if you want this badly enough to take the hit. And if I don't? Kaitlyn whispered. Then we go back to me being the town's favorite cautionary tale and you being their favorite poster child, Susanna said lightly, though her eyes were anything but. And we pretend that alleyway was just a weird blip in the simulation. Kaitlyn stared at her, chest aching. I need time, she said finally. Susanna's smile was small and tired. That's the one thing I can't give you more of. She turned away, picking up a wrench, the conversation clearly over. Kaitlyn stood there, waiting for her feet to move, for her mouth to find the magic phrase that would fix everything. Nothing came. She left to the sound of metal clinking against metal and the soft, almost inaudible crack of something inside her giving way. The fallout was quiet and vicious. The post was taken down, but the whispers weren't. They echo in grocery aisles, in pews, on porch swings. Did you hear? I saw them together. She was always different. The Monroe house felt like a pressure cooker. Her mother watched her over the rim of her coffee mug with eyes that were too sharp. Her father reprimanded no one in particular at dinner, going on about online rumors and the importance of maintaining moral leadership. You can't control what people say, her mother offered mildly. You can control what gives them ammunition, her father snapped. Kaitlyn stared at her plate, appetite gone. They'll move on, her mother said, in that way she had of smoothing her husband's rough edges. It's probably nothing. Her father turned to Kaitlyn. You haven't done anything to feed this nonsense, have you? Every cell in her body screamed. No, she said, the lie burning. Of course not. He held her gaze a second too long, then nodded. Good. We're meeting with the campaign team this week. We can't afford distractions right now. Distraction. That's what she was now. Not a daughter. Not a person. A potential liability. That night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, her phone silent on the nightstand. She could text Susanna. She should text Susanna. Instead, she opened the Notes app and stared at a blank page. Finally, she wrote. What do I want? She stared at the question until it blurred. Images floated up, Susanna's hands, steady and sure. The smell of motor oil and summer heat. The way she'd said, you used to have fire in you. Tears burned unexpectedly at the back of her eyes. She closed the app without answering. 2 weeks passed. They settled into an uneasy orbit of avoidance. Kaitlyn rerouted her inspections, always managing to forget about the garage until after hours. Susanna threw herself into work, taking on extra clients from the next town over. The Facebook buzz died down, replaced by outrage over the price of gas and a raccoon that had terrorized Mrs. Dalrymple's bird feeder. From the outside, everything normalized. Inside, Kaitlyn felt like someone had turned the color saturation down on her life. She went to Rotary dinners, charity galas, planning meetings. She smiled in photos, listened dutifully as people pitched their pet projects. She went home to her childhood bedroom, to a house where every picture frame showed her with perfect posture and acceptable joy. "You've been quiet lately," her mother remarked one evening as they loaded the dishwasher. "I've been busy," Kaitlyn said. "That's not the same thing." Her mother closed the dishwasher with a soft click. "Is this about the rumors?" "I said they were nothing." "You said that to your father," her mother corrected gently. "You didn't say it to me." Kaitlyn swallowed around the sudden tightness in her throat. "What do you want me to say?" "The truth," her mother said simply. "Not the press release." Kaitlyn stared at her, stunned. Her mother leaned against the counter, her face more open than Kaitlyn had seen in years. "When I married your father, he was a schoolteacher," she said. "Did I ever tell you that?" "You mentioned it," Kaitlyn said cautiously. "We lived in a rental half the size of this kitchen," her mother said with a soft smile. "He wanted to change the school system. I wanted to paint. We used to stay up until 3 in the morning arguing about education policy and whether anyone would ever buy my watercolors." "You used to paint?" Kaitlyn echoed, thrown. "I stopped when the campaign started," her mother said. "Your father needed a partner who could help him get elected. Someone polished. Presentable. Palatable. We made a bargain, he and I, he'd change the town, and I'd help him do it. My art could wait." "Did it feel worth it?" Kaitlyn asked before she could stop herself. "Sometimes," her mother said. "Not always. That's the thing about bargains, Katie. You don't always realize what you've given up until years later." The words landed like a pebble in a pond, the ripple spreading through all the carefully constructed layers of Kaitlyn's life. Her mother studied her. "Is she worth it?" It took Kaitlyn a second to process. "Who?" Her mother gave her the look she'd given her when she tried to claim the broken vase had fallen by itself at age 8. "I may not be on Facebook, but the ladies at church are. I know how to read between the lines." Shame and relief warred in Kaitlyn's chest. "It's complicated." "It always is," her mother said. "But you're my daughter. Not just the mayor's. If your heart is involved, then it's my business." Kaitlyn's voice dropped. "She thinks I'm ashamed of her." "Are you?" "No," Kaitlyn said fiercely. "Then who are you ashamed of?" her mother asked. "Her, or yourself for wanting her?" The question sliced through every excuse she'd stacked like sandbags. Kaitlyn closed her eyes. "Both." Her mother didn't flinch. "Then you have a choice. You can spend the rest of your life making yourself small enough to fit the version of you this town finds acceptable. Or you can decide that they don't get to vote on your happiness." "It's not that simple," Kaitlyn whispered. "It never is," her mother agreed. "But it starts simple. One decision. One truth." "And Dad?" Her mother sighed. "Your father loves you. But he loves the town too. Sometimes he forgets they're not the same thing. He will struggle. He will say things he doesn't fully mean. He will worry about how this affects his campaign." She paused. "But he is not the one who has to live inside your skin." Kaitlyn looked at her, something like hope and terror twisting through her. "What would you do? If you were me?" "I would find the girl," her mother said. "And I would tell her the truth, before someone else tells a story that isn't yours." She reached up and brushed a strand of hair from Kaitlyn's face, the way she had when Kaitlyn was a child and had nightmares. Go, she said. I'll handle your father for one evening. I have practice. The garage was lit only by the glow from the office when Kaitlyn pulled up. The sign on the door read closed, but she could hear music faintly from inside, some old rock song, the kind her dad called noise and Susanna called therapy. Kaitlyn's hands shook on the steering wheel. She sat there for a full minute, heart thudding. You can leave, a treacherous voice whispered. Go home. Pretend this is fine. She thought of her mother's eyes. Of Susanna's voice saying, I need to know that if we do this, you're not going to pretend it never happened. She got out of the car. The bell chimed weakly as she stepped inside. The garage smelled like it always did, oil and rubber and something warm she had come to associate with Susanna herself. Susanna looked up from the workbench, where she was soldering something under a lamp. She froze. What do you want? She asked, not unkindly, but with the exhaustion of someone who'd already rehearsed this scene in her head and didn't expect a happy version. To talk, Kaitlyn said. Without running away this time. Susanna set down the tool and turned off the lamp. Shadows wrapped around her, making her eyes seem darker. Okay, she said. Talk. Kaitlyn took a deep breath. You were right. Susanna's eyebrows rose. About? About me, Kaitlyn said. About how I always think of what everyone else needs before I think of what I need. About how I hide behind my father's image. About how I disappear when things get hard. Susanna blinked, clearly not expecting this angle. I also said you were uptight and had terrible taste in parade music. You agree with that too? This isn't a bit, Kaitlyn said, a shaky laugh escaping. I know. Susanna leaned back against the workbench, arms folded, warier now. So what changed? My mom, Kaitlyn said. And Facebook. And me. I guess. That's vague. I don't have a speech prepared, Kaitlyn said. For once. Miracles all around, Susanna murmured. Kaitlyn stepped closer, into the pool of light from the overhead lamp. I've spent my whole life performing. For this town, for my parents, for a future I didn't even choose. When that post went up, I panicked. Not because I was ashamed of you. Because I was ashamed of the version of me they'd see. Susanna's gaze searched her face. And what version is that? The one who doesn't fit the mold, Kaitlyn said. The one who wants things that make people whisper. The one who kissed a girl in high school behind the bleachers and then pretended it never happened. Susanna stilled. You, what? Kaitlyn swallowed. Junior year. After the home game against Ridgeview. Rachel Henderson. We were hiding from her ex. She kissed me. I liked it. And then the next day, she showed up holding hands with some linebacker and pretended it was just a dare. So I pretended too. I laughed it off. I let her rewrite the story because that was easier than being the weird one. Susanna's expression shifted, something like understanding sparking behind her eyes. You never told anyone. No, Kaitlyn said. Because I thought if I did, it would ruin everything. Dad's campaigns. My future. My whole role in this town. She reached up, fingers trembling. I'm done letting other people write my story. So what does that mean? Susanna asked quietly. It means, Kaitlyn said, that if you still want to, try. I'm not going to hide you. I'm not going to pretend this is nothing. She licked her lips. I can't promise it'll be easy. My dad will freak out. Some people will be awful. But I can promise this, if someone asks me what's going on, I won't lie. Susanna stared at her, every line of her body tense. You realize what you're saying, right? This town isn't exactly a bastion of progressive tolerance. I realize, Kaitlyn said. I heard what they said about me when I was just a career woman who forgot to get married. I'm under no illusions that they'll suddenly knit us a pride float. But I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I'm not. A slow, incredulous smile crept across Susanna's face. You rehearsed that line. Maybe a little, Kaitlyn admitted. You talked to your mom? Yes. What did she say? That she gave up painting to help my dad with his career, Kaitlyn said. And that she's not sure she'd make the same choice again. Susanna let out a low whistle. Damn. Mrs. Monroe coming in clutch. It scared me, Kaitlyn said. Hearing that. Realizing how easy it would be to look up in 20 years and realize I gave up something, someone, important for the sake of being acceptable. Susanna's throat worked. And you think I'm important? Kaitlyn stepped even closer, until their shoes touched. I know you are. Silence stretched, thick and fragile. Say it, Susanna said. What? Say what this is, Susanna insisted. Not a complication. Not a distraction. Not a situation. Say it. Kaitlyn's heart hammered so hard it hurt. But she lifted her chin. This is me, she said, voice shaking but clear. Telling you I want to be with you. Publicly. Privately. Messily. Completely. She took Susanna's hand, greasy fingers and all. This is me choosing you. Susanna's eyes shone, but she laughed, a watery, disbelieving sound. You sure you're not just drunk on motor oil fumes? I drove here sober, Kaitlyn said. And terrified. That has to count for something. Susanna inhaled slowly, like she was breathing in the words. What about your father? She asked softly. Your perfect life trajectory? I'll deal with him, Kaitlyn said. He can survive one more thing he didn't plan for. He married my mother, he should be used to surprises by now. Susanna huffed a laugh. You really think you can stand up to him on this? I don't know, Kaitlyn said honestly. But I'm going to try. And I'd rather fail at being honest than succeed at living a lie. Susanna's hand tightened around hers. Say it, she repeated, a little hoarse. One more time. For me. So I can stop replaying every awful version of this conversation I've been imagining for the last 2 weeks. Kaitlyn met her eyes, letting the words settle in her bones before she spoke. I want you, she said. Not as a secret. As my girlfriend. The word felt strange on her tongue and exactly right. Something in Susanna's face broke open. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Kaitlyn barely had time to register the change before Susanna was pulling her in, kissing her like she'd been holding her breath for years. This kiss wasn't slow or hesitant, it was hungry, relieved, tinged with anger and longing and something tender that made Kaitlyn's knees go weak. She clutched at Susanna's shirt, reveling in the solidity of her, the way she fit perfectly where Kaitlyn had always felt oddly hollow. When they parted, both breathing hard, Susanna pressed her forehead to Kaitlyn's. You sure about the public part? She asked, a teasing edge covering the vulnerability. I was thinking of starting small, Kaitlyn said. Maybe not a press conference. But a date. In public. Where people can see. Susanna snorted. You really want to break this town's brain, don't you? A little, Kaitlyn admitted. God, I'm in love with you, Susanna blurted, then froze. Silence dropped like a wrench. Susanna stammered. I mean I did, but not like. I'm in love with you too, Kaitlyn said, the terror of the words swallowed by the relief of finally saying them. So you're stuck. Susanna laughed then, a bright, shaky sound, and pulled her in again. They chose the diner. Partly because it was neutral territory, partly because it had the best fries in 3 counties, and partly because if you wanted anything to spread in Willow Creek, you took it to Mel's. They didn't make an announcement. They just walked in on a Thursday night holding hands. Conversations dipped around them, then rose again, choppier now. Mel herself raised an eyebrow from behind the counter, taking in the sight of the mayor's daughter and the mechanic sliding into a booth together, shoulders brushing. "Well," she said, strolling over with her order pad. "Took you too long enough." Kaitlyn blinked. "You knew?" "Honey, I've been watching you moon over each other since prom," Mel said. "You think I kept the jukebox on your favorite songs by accident?" Susanna spluttered. "You put on Don't Stop Believin' during my breakup because you looked like you were going to throw up," Mel said. "Figured either you'd cry or you'd finally talk to the girl staring at you from the refreshments table like she wanted to start a revolution and didn't know how." Kaitlyn flushed. "I did not." "You very much did," Mel said, smirking. "Now what can I get the town's new favorite troublemakers? Besides a side of unsolicited advice." "Cheeseburgers," Susanna said. "Extra bacon. Extra pickles. And milkshakes. 2. Vanilla for her, chocolate for me." Kaitlyn stared. "How did you?" "You talk too loud when you're on the phone," Susanna said. "And I pay attention." Mel scribbled the order with a satisfied nod. "I'll have it out in 10. And for what it's worth, I think you're good for each other. This town could use a little shaking up." As she walked away, Kaitlyn let out the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "That wasn't so bad," she murmured. "Give it 10 minutes, Susanna said. "Bet you $5 someone accidentally texts your dad a picture." "You're on," Kaitlyn said. "But make it 20. We're going to need the cash when we're both banned from the Rotary." They ate. They laughed. They endured curious looks, a few stares, one very deliberate throat clearing from a man who donated to every one of her father's campaigns. Kaitlyn's heart raced the entire time, but beneath the anxiety was a wild, fierce sense of rightness. When her phone buzzed, she didn't even have to look to know who it was. "Dad, we need to talk. Now." Kaitlyn stared at the screen, the words blurring. "You can ignore it," Susanna said quietly. "I can't," Kaitlyn said. "But I don't have to go alone." She typed back. "At Mel's. Come here if you want to talk." Susanna's eyes widened. "You sure?" "No," Kaitlyn said. "But I want you there when he finds out who I am." Mayor Monroe arrived faster than she expected, still in his work shirt, tie loosened, jaw set. The diner practically vibrated with the collective tension of everyone pretending not to look. He stopped at the end of their booth, eyes flicking to their joined hands on the tabletop. "Kate," he said, voice low. "A word." "Outside." "No," Kaitlyn said before fear could shut her up. "We can talk here." His gaze sharpened. "This is not a spectacle." "I will not." "Dad," she said, steady but firm. "My life is not a spectacle. It's just my life." He stared at her like she'd started speaking another language. "You are the mayor's daughter," he said. "Everything you do reflects on this office." "Then maybe this office needs to reflect different things," she said. "Like honesty. And the courage to live the values we plaster on campaign flyers." Somewhere in the back, Mel muttered, "Oh, boy," and cranked the music down just low enough that everyone could still hear every word. Her father's eyes flicked around the room, then back to her. "So it's true. You and her." "You can say my name, Mr. Monroe," Susanna said calmly. "It won't summon demons." His mouth tightened. "You stay out of this." "No," Kaitlyn said, temper flaring. "She doesn't. Because this involves her. She's not a rumor, she's not a threat, she's not a bad influence. She's my girlfriend." You could have heard a fry drop. Her father's face went through a series of micro-expressions: shock, hurt, anger, calculation. "Kaitlyn," he said finally, voice taut. "Do you have any idea what this will do to the campaign?" "Yes," she said. "Probably less than the way you're reacting right now." His jaw clenched. The people in this town have expectations. They expect their leaders to uphold certain standards. And you think loving someone who makes me happy fails that standard? She asked. You ran on family values, Dad. Well, your family includes me. This is what I value. This isn't about love, he snapped. This is about appearances. Timing. Appearances are lies with good lighting, she said. I'm done building my life around them. Something in his expression cracked at that, a flash of fear beneath the anger. I don't want you to get hurt, he said, softer. People will say things. They already are. They've been saying things about me my whole life, Kaitlyn replied. Too ambitious. Too cold. Too single. Too opinionated. That was without me holding my girlfriend's hand in public. He glanced at Susanna, disdain and wariness battling with some reluctant recognition. This was the woman who'd fixed his truck in the dead of winter when no one else could. This town, he began. Will survive, Kaitlyn finished. You taught me that Willow Creek could change. You can't be surprised when it actually does. Silence stretched. You're asking me, he said slowly, to support something I don't understand. To risk my re-election, our ability to do real good, because you've suddenly decided to make a statement. Kaitlyn's eyes stung, but she held his gaze. I'm asking you to see me. Not the version of me that photographs well. Me. Your daughter. The one who's been swallowing herself piece by piece to make sure you never had to defend her. His shoulders sagged almost imperceptibly. This is who you are? He asked quietly. Yes, she said. It's who I've always been. You just never wanted to look. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. I need time, he said. Take it, she replied. But understand this, I'm not going back in the box while you decide if I'm convenient to love or not. A muscle jumped in his jaw. He looked at Susanna again, really looked this time, the calloused hands, the grease under her nails, the wary protectiveness in her posture as she angled herself subtly between him and Kaitlyn. You hurt her, he said, pointing at Susanna, and I don't care how many times you fixed my truck, I will run you out of this town on a rail. Likewise, sir, Susanna said without missing a beat. You hurt her, and I'll stop changing your oil. A startled laugh shot out of someone in the back. The tension splintered just a fraction. Mayor Monroe sighed, decades of expectations hanging off his shoulders. This conversation isn't over, he said, stepping back. But I'm not going to have it in front of, he gestured vaguely at the room. All of Mel's. Probably wise, Mel called. He looked at Kaitlyn one last time, something unreadable in his eyes, then turned and left. The bell jingled cheerfully as the door swung shut. For a moment, no one moved. Then Mel slapped a ticket down on their table. Your money's no good here tonight, she said. Consider it a bravery discount. Kaitlyn let out a breath that turned into a shaky laugh. You know this means half your regulars might boycott you. I've survived worse than a bigot boycott, Mel said. Besides, I'll make up the difference selling popcorn to the people who come in hoping to see the mayor's daughter and her scandalous mechanic girlfriend. Oh God, Kaitlyn groaned, burying her face in her hands. Relax, Susanna murmured, sliding an arm around her shoulders. At least we've upgraded from slumming it behind the garage to scandalous mechanic girlfriend. That's a promotion. Kaitlyn leaned into her, exhausted and wired and oddly lighter. Do you regret it? Susanna asked quietly. Saying it like that. To his face. Kaitlyn thought of her father's expression. Of her mother rinsing paintbrushes in a sink somewhere. Of the Facebook comments that would explode tonight. No, she said. For the first time in my life, I don't. The town did not implode. It didn't throw them a parade either. But it didn't implode. The church ladies gossiped. The teenagers shrugged and treated it like an inevitability. The Gazette ran an opinion piece about changing times that tried very hard to sound neutral and mostly succeeded at sounding confused. Mayor Monroe's approval ratings dipped with some demographics and rose with others. The campaign team had a collective meltdown, then pivoted to a new line. Family isn't always what you expect, it's who you love and who you stand by. It tested well in focus groups. Her mother started painting again. Kaitlyn and Susanna found a rhythm. They fought. Obviously. They argued about time. Kaitlyn's endless meetings, Susanna's 12-hour days at the shop. They argued about money, about whether it was worth it to fix up the tiny house Susanna rented behind the garage or start saving for something bigger. They argued about boundaries with her father, about how many family dinners they had to endure where the air felt like unspoken landmines. But they also existed in quieter, sweeter ways. Saturday mornings on Susanna's couch with coffee and bad TV. Late-night walks past the river, where the fireflies made the world look pixelated. Heated debates about music, movies, the ethics of buying fancy soap when you could just use the cheap stuff. Kaitlyn learned how to change a tire. Susanna learned to sit through a town council meeting without making faces behind everyone's backs. Progress. One evening, 6 months after that first kiss behind the garage, they stood in the empty shell of what had once been a hardware store on the edge of Main Street. "What do you think?" Susanna asked, gesturing to the high ceilings, the cracked linoleum floor. Kaitlyn turned slowly, taking it in. "I think it smells like dust and lost dreams." "Romantic as always," Susanna said. "But squint a little. Trade school partnership. Auto tech classes, but not the bullshit kind that track kids out of college, real skills. Space for kids who don't want to sit in lecture halls. A lift over there. Workstations here. A corner for community repair days." She moved as she talked, eyes bright, hands painting the future in the air. Kaitlyn could see it when she tried, the hum of activity, the spray of sparks from a welding torch, teenagers who didn't fit the honor roll finding a place where their hands were worth something. "And you'd run it?" she asked. "Not alone," Susanna said. "I'd still keep the main garage going. But with the right funding, the right grants, we could make this a thing. A good thing. For the town." She glanced at Kaitlyn. "For your dad's precious future of Willow Creek workforce too. You're learning how to pitch to politicians," Kaitlyn said approvingly. "I'm dating one's daughter," Susanna said. "I get crash courses at dinner." Kaitlyn smiled, but her chest was tight with something like pride. "You want me to help?" she asked. "I want you to believe I can do this," Susanna said. "The rest is optional." "I do," Kaitlyn said immediately. "Believe it. You're the most stubborn, resourceful person I know. Half this town already trusts you with their cars. Trusting you with their kids isn't that big a leap." Susanna blinked. "That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me." "You need better friends," Kaitlyn said. "I have you," Susanna replied. "That's enough." They wandered through the dust motes and possibilities, talking logistics. Grants. Zoning. Insurance. At some point, Susanna stopped and just looked at her. "What?" Kaitlyn asked, self-conscious. "Nothing," Susanna said. "Just thinking." "Dangerous." "About how I used to think this town was a trap," Susanna said. "Like I'd be a failure if I never left. Everyone else ran off to cities, and I stayed. It felt like proof I wasn't good enough for more." "You are good enough for more," Kaitlyn said automatically. "I know that now," Susanna said softly. "Because I realized more doesn't have to mean somewhere else. It can mean building something here that never existed before. It can mean loving someone who makes me want to be better without making me feel like I'm not enough as I am." Kaitlyn's throat tightened. "You're going to make me cry in an abandoned hardware store." "On brand for you," Susanna said. Then her expression turned more serious. "Do you ever regret not leaving?" "Sometimes," Kaitlyn admitted. "On bad days." When the gossip gets under my skin. When I get another email about representing traditional values. But then I walk down Main Street, and Mel slips me extra fries, and Ms. Harris fights with teenagers about banned books, and I watch you argue with Mr. Jenkins about his carburetor like it's a moral failing. It's home. For better or worse. Susanna stepped closer, dust crunching under her boots. I know we didn't start easy, she said. We did the whole enemies to lovers thing with extra stupidity. But I like us here. Building something. Together. It feels right, Kaitlyn finished. Yeah. Susanna took her hand, grease-stained fingers fitting perfectly between Kaitlyn's. You know, Kaitlyn said, you never actually asked me. Asked you what? To be your girlfriend. I kind of assumed the diner declaration and the Facebook meltdown covered it, Susanna said. Rude, Kaitlyn said. I was robbed of a proper queer milestone moment. My apologies, Susanna said solemnly. Allow me to rectify. She cleared her throat, then dropped theatrically to one knee amid the dust, nearly slipping on a paint chip. Oh my God, get up, Kaitlyn hissed. If you propose in this building I will say no out of principle. Relax, Susanna said, grinning up at her. I'm improvising. Ms. Monroe? She took Kaitlyn's hand in both of hers. Will you do me the dubious honor of continuing to be my girlfriend, to help me terrify this town into progress, to occasionally bring me coffee when I forget to eat, and to yell at me when I try to take apart carburetors on the kitchen table? Kaitlyn laughed, tears pricking her eyes. You did ruin that table. Focus, Susanna said. Is that a yes? Kaitlyn looked down at her, at the woman who'd once been a rival and was now her favorite person on the planet. At the dust and the possibilities and the life they were building brick by brick, rumor by rumor, choice by choice. Yes, she said. It's a yes. Susanna sprung up, kissed her, and spun her around, making the dust motes swirl like confetti. As they stumbled, laughing, through the half-formed blueprint of their future, Kaitlyn Monroe realized that somewhere along the way, the need to win had been replaced by something better. She didn't need to win anymore. She needed to live. Honestly. Messily. Fully. With this ridiculous, stubborn, beautiful mechanic at her side. And for the first time in forever, that felt not just possible, but inevitable. Outside, Willow Creek carried on, imperfect and nosy and slow to change. Inside, in a dusty old building that was about to become something new, the mayor's daughter and the local mechanic stood amidst the ghosts of what-ifs and said yes to a life neither of them had been raised to imagine. Whatever came next, gossip, elections, bad days, broken engines, they'd face it together. Which, in a town like theirs, was the most radical thing of all. The end. Thank you so much for listening. Subscribe for more Sapphic stories of love.